Hey Packmates and Lone Wolves! Since we've opened multiple discussions on Wolfsong recently, I feel compelled to mention my other big issue with the movie. The Death Alpha is a really weak antagonist. And I don't mean physically. He can clearly crack open any skull he chooses, but what I mean is he's a weak character without any depth or motivation. In fact, the uncertainty around what his motivation even is bothers me to no end. But do you know who makes way more sense as a character and as an antagonist? Cobalt. In fact, if I were to redo the movie today, Cobalt would have been our main baddie. Why, you ask?
Shut up! Don't criticize me in front of them!
Well, there's that, but if you're still not convinced, let's dig deeper into why he's the obvious choice. Also, I feel the need to pop in a disclaimer here. All of my recent videos on Wolfsong relationships, and redesigning the characters are purely my opinion. If I actually remake the movie, it's unlikely any of these plot points or character designs will be included. These things would barely be considered a first draft since they live in my, quote-unquote opinion bucket. If any of these ideas do end up in the first draft bucket, they would definitely go under major scrutiny with myself and you guys before I would ever move them into the next bucket. And only the best of the best ideas would make it to the final draft bucket. So don't worry, if you disagree on any of these ideas, let me know in the comment section below. I swear I read all of them and everyone's input is being considered. Now, let's get on with it. Meet the Death Alpha. Some of you may remember him as the jerk that runs the entire evil operation in the Wolfsong movie. He killed off the Hollows, took over a majority of the wolf packs in this territory, and is well known as an awful, abusive leader and father. He doesn't put any value on life, and if anyone inconveniences him, they quickly end up hurt or dead. He sounds great, right? Well, not really. He sounds like he was written to be hateable, which is fine. There are tons of bad guys out there like this, but it isn't the best method for writing a good, believable bad guy. And taking it a step further, his character doesn't bounce off our protagonist's personality at all. One great example of a really good protagonist-antagonist dynamic is Batman and Joker. Yeah, I know, there are tons of videos on YouTube already that talk about how great of an antagonist the Joker really is. So I'll get to the point. The Joker is chaos. He just wants to watch the world burn. And Batman is justice and order, an exact opposite of the Joker. Since they're so different in their morals and opinions, they have awesome chemistry and bounce off of each other beautifully. They each have a reason to be included in the story. There are many other examples of epic protagonist-antagonist relationships, but let's get back to Wolfsong so this video isn't too long. When I look at the Death Alpha and his personality, motivation, and overall character, he wouldn't have made it past the opinion bucket level. And why is that? Well, let's start at the beginning. Who's the Death Alpha and how does he fit into the original story? The Death Alpha, also known as Leslie for some reason, is a hellhound. He's Cerberus' brother and part of a larger hellhound pack in the underworld. The story starts out with Cerberus asking for Leslie's help. He's the guard dog of the gates of hell, but he wants to wreak havoc on the world above. Unfortunately, the only way to do that is through divine intervention. Cerberus needs the Pure of Heart to use the Stone of Souls and the Book of Legends to release him from hell. But since Cerberus has a job to do, he can't leave. That's where the Death Alpha comes in. The Death Alpha agrees to help Cerberus in exchange for Cerberus' job. I know we're just recapping, but let me stop here. Why? Why does the Death Alpha even care? If the Death Alpha can go up to the surface and wreak havoc himself, why would he even be interested in Cerberus' job? This is redonkulous to me, and if you don't see it, let me put it into perspective. Say you visit your cousin in jail and he asks you to bring him some tools so he can break out. Your cousin is the strongest and leads the gang inside of this prison. Everyone respects him. He makes a deal with you, bring him tools to break out, and you will be lucky enough to replace him in jail while he goes back out into the world, free as a bird. He promises you that everyone in the prison will respect you, and he explains in great detail how amazing it is being locked up. Would you do that? Would you take that deal? Well, the Death Alpha thought it was a perfect trade-off, and that's where his character starts falling flat to me, because the only reason he actually made the deal with Cerberus is plot. It had nothing to do with what the Death Alpha actually wanted. Because anyone with a brain could see that being locked up in hell and forced to guard a door for the rest of your life gives you way less power than being free and doing whatever you want without consequences. And on top of that, the Death Alpha was already strong, so it's not like doing this would increase his power. Okay, sorry for the rant, let's get back to the synopsis. The Death Alpha, stupidly, agrees to help out his brother. He leaves hell with his own army of hellhounds that we see in only brief sections of the movie. The first thing he does is go after the Stone of Souls. This scene didn't make it into the movie, but it's talked about as part of the lore.
There was some dispute over the power between the elemental wolves and the hellhounds. A huge war broke out. Lots of animals died. Yada yada yada.
In a nutshell, the Stone of Souls is a powerful rock that contains all the powers of past dead wolves. And the heavens were worried that if the power falls into the wrong hands, pause, it would mean disaster for everyone, so they appointed Hollows, highly trained wolves with elemental powers to guard the stone. Honestly, this was probably one of the stronger plot points in the movie. I wish it had more screen time. Anyways, the Death Alpha took his army of hellhounds to defeat the Hollows and steal the stone, the first item in his scavenger hunt. He defeated the Hollows without too much trouble and killed the leader of the group, the Death Hollowed. Upon killing him, Leslie gained the Death Hollowed's elemental power of death. After this event, everyone started calling him the Death Alpha. However, his death power is never shown, explained, or explored, which was a huge missed opportunity. Way later, the Death Alpha takes over multiple packs as he searches for his last two items, the Pier of Heart and the Book of Legends. This is when he takes over Myra and Arrow's pack, but unfortunately the pups both escape, and hey look, Myra seems to possess a book of some kind. It's probably not important.
Give me the book. It disappeared.
Moving on, this tyranny continues off screen, and we have a time skip to the beginning of the movie with Kara and Alador. When we go back to the Death Alpha, he's still searching for the book, meaning he took a literal break so our main characters could catch up. I'm just saying. Once Alador and Kara join Damien's pack, the Death Alpha's lackeys show up and take Alador because he's definitely the Pier of Heart. Then we see the Death Alpha offering Alador girls aplenty if he just works with him willingly. And when Alador refuses, the Death Alpha throws him off a cliff, which somehow doesn't kill him. And then he gets taken to the torture grounds after the Death Alpha throws out this fantastically unique line that wasn't taken from any other movie.
It's time to break this wolf.
Then the Death Alpha just disappears for the majority of the movie. He shows up now and again for Rhana's story, so we can see how bad her childhood was with him as a dad. He shows up again to watch Alador getting tortured, and then he shows up a final time right before the final battle. Kara turns into a winged wolfy monster, stabs the Death Alpha with her horn, and after killing everyone she loves, he makes a hasty retreat, living to kill another day. And that's it. That's the Death Alpha. So what's my problem with him? Well, my biggest issue is his motivation. He wants power, but why? The movie never delved into this, so his motivation is never actually talked about or developed. His motivation for gathering these items for his brother to escape doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because from what we can see, the Death Alpha can do way more damage without getting stuck in hell. Up on the surface, he's already a big fish in a little pond, and none of the wolves are even close to being strong enough to defeat him. Even the Sacred Hollows, the Keepers of the Stone of Souls, all got demolished when they fought him. If you guys hadn't seen that short, it's called Hollow's World. I'll link it here. Here's my second issue. He doesn't fit into the story. You could replace him with literally any other Hellhound or Wolf, and we would get the same job done. Switching him out with a different character should dramatically change the story, but it doesn't. The only difference between him and this random background character is his species. So how would I rework this? Well, we already have a very popular baddie that would do spades better than the Death Alpha. Cobalt. He's crazy, manipulative, angry, and wants to get revenge on everyone that's wronged him in his life. In the main story, this is Zar and the Death Alpha. They infiltrated Cobalt's pack when he was a puppy and scared the living daylights out of him. When Cobalt showed his fear, the Death Alpha forced Cobalt to kill his brother just to make up for the humiliation. This event changed Cobalt into something else entirely, but he never forgot the source of pain. He knew the only way to get revenge was by gaining power and raising up in the ranks, so that's what he did. He was never strong or special, just obsessed and determined. His hatred kept him going, and the more he killed, the more he liked it. The crazier he became, and the more entertaining he was to watch. There are certain aspects of his character I would want to keep. He's insane, short-tempered, egotistical, and cowardly. These are the traits that make Cobalt who he is. And if he were to replace the Death Alpha as our main antagonist, the only trait I would add is charm. If he had the ability to manipulate others into doing his bidding, he could do everything the Death Alpha did, and he would do it with a better dynamic to the story and our protagonist. Let me lay out the dynamic so you have a better idea of what I'm saying. Originally, Kara was a reactionary character who made the tough decisions at the end of the day. She killed Damien because she had no other choice. And along the way, she would try to do what was right even if it was difficult, like swallowing her own sadness so she could prepare for war when her brother died, or leaving Damien's pack to find Alador after he was kidnapped. She made the hard decisions, and she made them quickly. The Death Alpha is power hungry. That's really all I know about him. Now, if we tweak this a little bit, this is more along the lines of what I would do. Kara would be rewritten as a Pier of Heart, you know, how she was supposed to be. She would be the proactive character that drives the plot instead of things just happening to her. She is much more optimistic and caring of others, and she sees value in the life around her. Conversely, let's kick the Death Alpha out of here and add Cobalt. As I mentioned earlier, he's insane, short-tempered, egotistical, cowardly, and charming. His favorite flavored tea is revenge, and he can easily manipulate his followers into doing all the grunt work for him. He doesn't place any value on life and views everyone around him as his own personal pawns to do whatever he pleases with. Cobalt's lack of empathy for others would directly counter Kara's morals, giving them an interesting chemistry when they are both on and off screen. But before you jump to the comments and point out everything wrong with the new pairing, keep in mind that this is just my first idea. That's why this dynamic in particular is in my opinion bucket for now. Now, with that out of the way, how would I rewrite the story? I don't have anything nailed down, but it might be something like this. Cobalt needs to have a reason to engage with Damien's pack, and more importantly, with Kara and Alador. So what if Damien wronged Cobalt in the past? Instead of Cobalt hating Zar and the Death Alpha, he hates Damien, and of course this story would still need to have a connection to magic, the underworld, the stone, all the stuff that is iconic in the first movie. And yes, Cobalt would definitely make a contract with Hartana at some point, the evil bear shapeshifter thing, who then seduces Damien until he is nearly mind-controlled. Honestly, I can just imagine Hartana and Cobalt's conversations on screen, and I'm already so much more entertained. I can see Hartana insulting Cobalt, and Cobalt being egotistical and unintelligent enough to think she's complimenting him. Moving on. Cobalt would have a much more intense desire to kill Alador and Kara just because they were unfortunate enough to be Damien's children. And hey, while I was writing this, I had a different idea. Maybe Alador and Kara are Cobalt's kids. Cobalt, being the narcissistic asshat he is, emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically abuses his kids to the point that their mother, Cobalt's mate, sneaks them out of the territory. She hides them somewhere Cobalt wouldn't be able to find them and returns to the pack, telling her mate that the children ran away. Cobalt can't believe his children would actually run away from him, the best father and alpha in the lands, so the only logical conclusion is someone stole them. Our main protagonists get discovered by Damien, who instantly adopts and raises them. When Cobalt discovers that Damien has had his kids all along, his new target for revenge is set. This would give Cobalt a segue into making a deal with Hartana or Cerberus himself. Sure, let's run with that for a minute, because it would make much more sense if Cobalt went straight to a Hellhound in search of more power so he could get revenge that he longed for. He did, after all, grow up weaker than most, and with his hatred and insanity, he would look for the easiest route to attaining more power. He could make a deal with Cerberus, who wanted the Pure of Heart, Stone of Souls, and Book of Legends. The Hollows would still be alive in this version, but honestly, that would be a lot more interesting, and Cobalt could raise his armies to retrieve the Stone of Souls. There could even be a moment in the story where Cobalt realizes his daughter is the Pure of Heart, and he'll have to make a choice on if he wants to give her over to Cerberus so he can fulfill his revenge, or if he will learn to let things go. Not sure if Cobalt deserves a redemption arc, but it would be fun to explore. There's one more thing worth noting about protagonist and antagonist relationships that I would love to explore, and these are relationships where both characters have a very similar, if not the exact same, backstory. Something bad happens to both characters, and our protagonist chooses to react in a good or positive way, while our antagonist goes down a darker path. So in this instance, we would have Kara and Cobalt walking a similar path in life, but one highly impactful moment in their past changes their direction. I'm not sure how I would do this, but just as an example, let's pretend Kara and Cobalt are very outgoing and have a lot of friends. They both get into a situation where their friends are killed, and they both have to live with the guilt of being the lone survivor. Kara leaves the situation with a bigger appreciation of life and her relationships with everyone around her. She feels it is important to enjoy things while she has them because it's never certain how long someone will be with her. But Cobalt leaves the situation with a lust for revenge and distances himself from others so he never has to go through the pain of loss again. The torment just isn't worth it. Two very similar situations and two very different reactions can give our protagonist and our antagonist a dynamic that not only interlocks with each other but can also give us more insight on both characters' deep-seated motivations and their morals. There are a lot of ways you could twist this, but in my opinion, Cobalt is a better antagonist than Leslie could ever be. And yes, I've seen the comments, a lot of people watch Wolfsong solely for the Cobalt scenes. Can't say I blame them.
Don't you dare look at me like that! Yes, you gave me attitude with that look! Do you know who I am? I am Cobalt!
Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my rewrite. If you want to see more videos about Wolfsong, be sure to hit the like button. Also, subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified about all my future videos. Until next time, see ya, Packmates.